Hey guys, Dr. Moore here, coming to you on a really nice Florida summer afternoon. We're in August here. Weather's actually nice. And I'm coming to you with a what would I do if I was you scenario. And it's all going to be centered around debt. And my advice to every college student out there, really anybody, but particularly college students, is to minimize your debt. Primarily college debt, but debt in general. You know, a lot of people hear college debt and they think, well, that's good debt. You know, a house, that's good debt. You know, there's good debts and you hear there's bad debts. But I'm going to tell you that no debt is good because it's money that you owe. So I'm not going to, I can't really say that anything's quote unquote good, but at the same time, college debt isn't necessarily bad debt either. I'm going to say it really just depends on your scenario. You know, if you go, we've talked about careers a little bit in other videos, if you're going to college and you haven't picked a good career, or at least you don't have a plan in place, you know, if you're going to go for a particular degree, and maybe it's not like a degree that has a real specifically designated career attached to it, because we know there's a lot of degrees like that. You know, my bachelor's degree was in biology. There's no real defined degree for that. Now, I had a plan though. What was my plan? Well, my plan was ultimately it was to go on to graduate school, get another degree. So I used the biology kind of piggyback to go on and get a graduate degree. So I had a plan. And same thing, like you're going for a bachelor's, let's say, or associates or something like that. And even if you're not going to move on and do something else, you need to have a plan. There are a lot of opportunities. Let's say you're just getting a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies. That's a good example. That's you kind of can pick concentrations with the degree, but interdisciplinary studies is a good example of a degree that's kind of a catch-all. It's a degree that's a la carte. We take a lot of credits, we put them in interdisciplinary studies, and you graduate with a bachelor's degree. But it's not like you're going for a defined career in, let's say, like nursing or radiologic technology or something like that, like we've talked about before. So can you still get a good job with that degree? Absolutely. I'll give you a good example. My brother's in charge of a big, here in Florida, a big insurance company, and they hire people with bachelor's degrees. They hire them to be adjusters. They hire them to be underwriters. What's their requirement? Bachelor's degree, period. That's their requirement. What if you don't have a degree? They're not going to hire you for those positions. They may hire you for a different position, but they're not going to hire you for underwriters or adjusters. So, and that's just what he told me. So what if you have a bachelor's degree in business? Well, yep, they're going to hire you. What if it's in interdisciplinary studies? They're going to hire you. What if it was in like nursing, but you didn't want to be a nurse? Well, guess what? They're going to hire you. So degree opens doors. You just have to have a plan. And so, like we said before, you have to be smart with your money. So good scenario would be you leave high school, you go to college, you get a degree, you've got a little bit of debt. But guess what? You graduate, you get a really good job, you're making significantly more money than you were prior to your college. You're able to pay all your bills and pay off your loans quickly. I'd say that college debt that you accrued was good debt, meaning it paid off, right? It was a good return on your investment. And that's really what I'm talking about here. If you're going to get in a little bit of college debt, that's okay, but it's got to make sense and it's got to be a good return on your investment. We've all heard the stories about college students that they rack up a whole bunch of debt. There's a lot of ways to rack up more debt and less debt. You know, a lot of people are like, well, the tuition's the same no matter what. Yes, but you can add housing in there, you can add food in there. And a lot of colleges, you can you can borrow more, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to borrow less. I'm going to go locally to a college in my hometown. I'm going to live at home. I'm going to eat meals at home. I'm going to borrow the minimum, and you're going to have less you owe when you graduate. Less you owe when you graduate, less to pay off. because we've heard all these stories about students graduating with huge debt and literally having loans for 30 years, like basically like a mortgage on a house. And a lot of the students now, these are for bachelor's degrees, by the way, they're owing anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month payments for 30 years. Now we know prices have gone up on housing significantly, but $1,000 used to be rent or even a house payment. Now it's more like $2,000. But even if it is, $1,000 out the window for school, for a loan, that's still hurting money that could go somewhere else. And so my advice is you want to try to borrow as little as possible. I spoke with a student not too long ago that was halfway through her degree and she hasn't borrowed any money yet. And that's the goal. And I said, well, how'd you do it? I'm just curious, So she said, I've got some scholarships and I'm basically paying the rest as I go. I'm just making payments every month to the school I work at. And she hasn't owed anything. She's working on the side. She's going to school full time. This is the way to do it, because chances are she's going to owe a little bit when she graduates, more than likely, just based on talking with her. But she's going to owe very, very little. She's going to be able to graduate, get a job, and very easily pay back her college education. So this is the thing I'm telling you right now, because a lot of you younger people, I'm sure you realize that you see how hard inflation's hitting everybody and how expensive everything's getting. Housing, fuel, services are through the roof, meaning you go get your car fixed, mechanics have jacked their prices up, doctors' offices have jacked their prices up. Everybody's charging more because everything's more expensive. When prices go up, everything goes up. Now supplies at the mechanics shop are more expensive, so they charge more, right? Everything the doctor uses and all their supplies are more expensive, so they jack their price up. Everybody jacks their prices up. And that's what we're dealing with. So anything you can do to minimize your debt, it's just going to make life much, much easier when you graduate. And so my advice to everyone is borrow as little as possible. I'm not saying don't borrow anything, because for a lot of people that's almost impossible, but you want to be, again, like I said in that video, you want to be really, really smart with your money. Borrow as little as possible. Because you can imagine if you graduate, let's say you've got a $100 student loan, that's going to be really easy to double up or triple up, pay off very quickly, and it's not going to kill your finances. But imagine if you had $1,000 student loan every month. I mean, I can't even imagine that. That would be so difficult when you've got, place to live. Most people need transportation. I mean, it's really going to make things more difficult. So that's my advice, is to limit your debt as much as possible. I wouldn't recommend getting in car debt. Again, we go back to like good debt, bad debt. Is housing good debt? Again, I don't like to say any debt's good, but again, housing isn't necessarily a bad thing. But again, it depends. If you get a house that you can't afford, and whether it's a good deal or not, if you can't afford it, I don't think that's good debt. Because if it's going to cause you to go bankrupt or foreclosed on, I think that's not good debt. But if you buy something that you can afford and it works, maybe you're able to do it in a way that you actually save money versus renting, then it becomes good debt, because one day you're going to pay it off. This is the other thing. You want to minimize your college debt as much as possible. So again, you can graduate with little to no money you owed, and you don't really want to get in any other debt, this is my opinion, except for maybe a house. You want to buy a car cash. And you say, well, I can't afford a good car cash. You buy something cheap, get somebody to help you that knows how to, find good cars, and have them look it over. I've driven old cars for years that surprisingly are actually really reliable. There's repairs every once in a while, but it's still cheap, much cheaper than the average car payment. And we'll talk about that for a minute. I'm in Florida, so things are pretty expensive. they're saying the average car payment, new car payment, is $750. The average rent is $2,500. The average mortgage is like $2,000 a month plus taxes plus insurance, which means they're paying $2,500 plus every month. So how are people going to afford a student loan on top of that when you've got repairs and you've got, on a car, you've got repairs on a house, you've got food? How are people going to afford that? So you've got to be smart with your money. Now, this is what students have done in the past. They borrow lots of money in college. They've got this $1,000 a month student loan, and then they go through deferment. The government for the longest time was letting everybody defer, meaning they didn't have to make payments. Or I've even seen students strategically go back to college, take a class or two every semester, just so they could defer, because you can defer if you're in school. The problem with this is you still owe the money, and a lot of loans, which students don't realize, with a lot of loans, they are still racking up interest. So no, they're not making any payments right now, but the interest is going up. And believe me, I know a lot of professors that I've worked with in the past that had massive amounts of student loans, and I'm talking $200,000, $300,000 in student loans. And I asked them, like, how are you going to pay for that? And they're like, I don't know how. I mean, it's basically impossible. And I was like, well, how are you going to start? Or what's the game plan? And they're like, well, I'm just going to stay in college forever. I mean, literally, that was their game plan. So they could stay forever, which I'm telling you, this is not a long-term plan. Their thought was, if I could stay forever, then I'm going to defer forever. But I'm telling you, that's not a long-term plan. Number one, the rules could change at any time, and that becomes a really bad option for a lot of people. So it's not the smartest thing to do. A lot of people, instead of deferring, they go get a job, they leave school because they don't want to go back to school, they don't want to keep taking classes, because, by the way, you're deferring when you're taking classes, but you're also racking up more debt, right? Not just in interest, but you're paying for more classes, which means you're racking up more tuition. It's not a good, it's literally a short-term fix. It's like you can't pay your bills, so you go ahead and you pay them with a credit card. That's all you're doing. In the long run, it's not going to work. Other students are doing the whole financial assistance program, where basically they're getting lower payments with their student loans based on income. And it lowers their payments. They may have like $1,000 payment. If they paid the full payment legitimately for 30 years, it's $1,000 a month. But in their case, due to the government programs that are out there, they can do like an income restructuring type plan where they pay less. But the catch with this is they are either racking up interest that's going to be paid later, or they're stretching out their loans even further. And so again, I don't think that's a good plan, because again, you don't want to be perpetually paying on these things forever. I had student loans. I had them way longer than I wanted to. And it takes time to pay them off. I'm thankful enough I have paid them off. My goal is to never have any ever again. I just will never go in debt for a student loan. That's where I'm at in this world. But now with that said, I may go back and take more college classes. I have some things I want to take and I'm interested in. So it's not that it's a bad thing to be in college. I want to take some. I'm just going to pay as I go. That's the plan. Maybe I don't do it as quickly as I want, but I'm still going to get the job done. The other thing students hear a lot is, well, don't worry about the debt, because college is expensive, and yes, you're going to have some loans, but you know what? You're going to get a job and you're going to make tons of money and you're going to pay them off really, really fast. I heard that. That's basically what they told me back in the day. And I can tell you that isn't reality. Now, don't get me wrong, you can make good money and you should be making more after college than before college. But again, with inflation, with everything the way it is in this world right now, it's not so easy to just pay off thousands and thousands of dollars right away. It takes time. So don't think that you're just gonna, oh, I'm just gonna pay off $50,000 lickety split. It's not gonna work that way, because things come up and you may get ahead for a little while and then you get behind for a little while, whatever. But your attitude should be, I'm gonna pay things off quickly. That should be the attitude. I'm gonna pay things off as quick as I can. But don't think that it's gonna be lickety split, because I can tell you with everybody, it never is that way. So same thing with a house. It's like, oh, people see this as, oh, I can afford that, or I can afford this car, whatever. Things always come up. So you want to basically budget much less than you expect, much less than you think, because you want to plan for the future. So that's my little spiel for today, is borrow as little as possible, no matter what it is. I can promise you, if you're debt free, you're going to be able to save a lot of money for whatever you need. Money's going to come very quickly, and you're actually going to be able to save it, and you're going to be able to buy the things not only that you need when you need it, like literally just go buy a car if you need one, or get something fixed when you need it fixed, even though it might be a lot of money. It's like, oh, I need a new AC system for my house. Well, that's a lot of money. But, if you don't have any debt, you're going to have a good chunk of money ready to go to pay that off. Even if you didn't have the money ready to go, your income's going to generate that money right away to then have enough to pay it off, because it's not going to debt. And that's the whole point. So again, that's my spiel for today, is the secret to kind of making things in the world today, the way things are challenging, with inflation in particular, is to be debt free, or at least as little as possible. So I hope you follow my advice. I can promise you it works. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen the students thrive that have followed that plan, and I've seen the ones struggled that haven't. And that's why I'm telling you this. So again, I hope that helps. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.